What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Make It Custom. I'm actually out in Red Deer right now with my buddy Kyle. Going to swap meets. I think we're gonna make a little video about that. But this video is all about the 1956 miniature handmade Buick car. It's a really special car to me. A lot of you guys noticed it in the last couple of videos, and we're gonna talk about all that right now. So don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. Let's get into it. It's a good one. Well, there it is. You guys asked, and now you know. This is a 1956 Buick custom mini car. It's not a pedal car. This is like full-size panels and pieces and sections and parts to make up this miniature car. To give you an idea on like how big it is, it's about as long as a golf cart, but not quite as wide. It's pretty proportionate to the actual car. Like, I'm talking about length and width, obviously not lights and stuff. Like, they all seem huge on this thing because obviously it's way smaller and the lights aren't any smaller, you know? Quick background on the car. I didn't build it. This is a friend of mine that put this together. He recently passed away. That's how it came into my possession. So my goal is to just kind of like carry on where he left off. We spoke about it many times. He loved this car. He loved, you know, putting it together, and he put a lot of his like kind of artistic flair into it, and I think it's a really special car, and it's a Buick Special. So there you go. So I'm just gonna try and, like, you know, with his ideas in mind, continue it. It doesn't need much. Like, the body is figured. He welded everything together. He used chunks of the actual hood. He used chunks of the fenders. He, you know, moved around the portholes to put them in a better spot for a car this small. He sectioned down midget bumpers actually to use for it, because the actual Buick ones, if you've seen like a 56 Buick bumper, they're huge and they got these big turbines on there, and they were just too big. Like, you couldn't have made them smaller. But anyway, really cool car, tons of hours, lots of thought, and kind of heart and soul that went into this little car. So I'm just gonna continue on. What it had for it as like a power plant, give you an idea of what kind of a guy he was. He would use anything he had and just repurpose it, and he always, you know, could find a good use for kind of anything. Like, this car was so rotted and so roached that like anybody else would have thrown it away, but he was like, I could section that up and make a mini car. Anyway, so he had an ATV laying around, and so that's what he was going to use to power it, because he had it. So he built like a kind of scabbed together chassis of an ATV, and made it work for the wheelbase and everything. And by the time he got to this point with the body, he had decided that the ATV chassis wasn't really the right thing to do because of your seating position and that kind of stuff. You would have had to sit up high. It would have, you know, only been one person riding in it. So he had kind of told me that he wanted to make it into a go-kart. You sit down low in it, you know, a simplistic frame, no suspension, so that you know, there's as much space as possible, really. And he even had already purchased the motor for it. So there's a 6.5 horsepower import Honda knockoff kind of side shaft motor that is electric start. Like he was gonna have it like key in the dash, electric start. Like I've got the key for it and the lock cylinder and everything. Like he kept all those little pieces, light switches and all these little, you know, trims and emblems and all that kind of stuff. So judging by the parts that came with it, I can tell kind of what he was planning. Right down to those little, there's these little light bulbs that are inside the trunk. Like they're not license plate lights, they're pointing inside the trunk. So he wanted it so that you could open the trunk and the light switch would turn on for the inside of the trunk, you know, like make it as much of a real car as possible, I think was his plan. So let's do a quick walk around and just kind of have a look at it. So there it is. I just love the look of it. It's like cartoon looking because of how he proportioned it, you know, and the fact that he could use all this trim and create a section down windshield for it out of stainless is really, really cool. I don't know if that gas door is actually gonna have a gas cap underneath it. We'll have to see, you know. The back is super deadly. Those are actually little bumperettes from a midget. Like he didn't even modify those. Those are the actual bumperettes and they just like fit. Or he made them fit because he made this whole splash apron here. This is all custom made. I can tell this is like garnish molding from like a 20s car, I'm pretty sure, just by looking at it, I'm pretty sure. All this is all handmade. I just love the trunk. Like I'm such a geek, but so is he. Look at that. Trunk actually opens like it should. He put little spring-loaded shocks in there, made a trunk gutter, like he could actually make this thing seal like a real trunk, which is kind of fun. Like I was saying, there's these little light bulbs right here. And you know, I found a switch, like a little switch that I'm sure he was planning on using for the trunk. So when the trunk opened, those lights came on. I am missing these. The other fun thing about this car is that like, yeah, like the chrome's kind of in rough shape, but I really want to take this thing to swap meets, like, you know, those big swap meets in the States, like Pomona or Puyallup or Monroe or Portland, like to go toot around in the swap meet. Maybe you find some better chrome pieces for it. I don't know. I just think it's super cool. So my whole plan for it now, tonight, right now, is that I'm going to try and make a frame for it. So these are the pieces of the ATV chassis that I kept. I think this is super cool. This, I guess on import ATVs, this is a, you know, an import ATV. So the gearbox for the ATV doesn't have reverse. So they have this reverse box on the rear axle that's just cable actuated, which is perfect. All we have to do is pull a cable and we're in reverse. So we're definitely gonna use that. Size 40 chain sprocket. It's got disc brakes mounted to it already. This whole assembly just bolts on with 4 bolts. So it'll be so easy. It should be so easy to put it onto a chassis. And then it did have front suspension, like double A-arm suspension. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna use these brakes because go-karts don't really need front brakes, but maybe it would be kind of cool, like to have a separate brake. Because it's cable front and hydraulic rear. What if we had like cable actuated front brakes for doing burnouts? Huh? Burnouts? Burnouts, yes. It had little mini ball joints here. I'm just gonna do a go-kart style, just put a little tube in here. That'll be our new pivot. I kept some of the steering components, that kind of stuff. He's got this, look at this mini steering wheel. Little tiny 10-inch steering wheel. Totally like the right wheel for that car, like miniature. Yeah, I kept a few bits of chain and stuff. Here's the Buick lock cylinder with the key. That'll go in the dash. Like, check the dash out. He even used part of the dash to make a dash. So I think that probably what he was thinking is that you put a piece of plate through here and then just drill the holes for light switch and key ignition and whatever else. If we went as far as putting turn signals, like there's the turn signal lights right there. Pretty cool. You could definitely go really far with this thing. I'm so in love with it. I think it's so cool that he made that. I'm honored to continue its legacy. So tonight I'm gonna make a frame for it. We're gonna get that rear end on, we're gonna get those front wheels on. That's the goal, just a basic frame, get this thing rolling. I'm not gonna mount the body or anything yet, but let's get to it. Okay, so I'm just gonna let you know what I'm thinking. So engine has to mount on top of the rear axle to have the wheelbase that I want. I've decided on a 48-inch wheelbase. So I went from the center of his wheel opening here, and then that longer line right down there, that's gonna be the rear wheel. I think that makes sense. I don't want it to go too far this way because my back seat, or not the back seat, the actual seat will get in the way of the wheel. I want the car to be as low as possible, but to incorporate the engine that he's got there without putting the engine in the front and having no leg room, it's got to go on top of that rear axle if I want to use that rear axle, and I definitely want reverse. So what I've done is I've measured to the trunk lid and to the floor. I'm pretty much, like, this is the ride height I want, about 4 inches. That's pretty much where I want it to sit. I think it looks cool there, and my front white walls that I ordered are 16 inches tall. 8-inch rim and 16 inches tall, and that means that I'll be just tucking a little bit of white up there. So that's the plan, that's what I want. So I'm pretty much thinking about making a plate across the top here, just straight across the top, and it bends down here. These are the 2 mounting bolts on each side, so easy. The brakes are already mounted, like all that stuff is already mounted within itself. So all I have to do to mount this rear end to my frame is pick up these 2 bolts on those 2 cast pieces. So because I want the motor to go on top, I'm actually gonna have to lose the muffler, lose the air cleaner, and lose the gas tank. None of those are gonna fit. Like, I just barely have enough room if I get rid of all those. And I can get like an air cleaner that goes out the side, I can make a little pipe, put the gas can wherever. Actually, now that we're moving the gas tank, we'll try and make something happen with the gas door. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna go to the CNC and I'm gonna try and draw up a plate. This is all kind of like, you know, fun stuff, trying to figure it out. I'm gonna draw a plate that comes across like this, has my motor mount holes, and then comes down the sides, and then we'll weld to these bars. And if I can make that out of one piece, oh, so sweet, so sweet. Well, we're looking like something now, aren't we? So what this is a jack shaft. This is our sprocket that comes off of this transmission. This is called a centrifugal variable speed transmission. So as this spins, this belt gets tightened on and it rides up here, changing the gear ratio. And as this spins, this one opens and it lets the belt drop inside. And so that's changing the ratio. So we've got kind of like a small pulley here and a big pulley here. Well, this pulley gets bigger and this one gets smaller the faster it spins. So anyway, there's our size 40 chain sprocket here. I had some bearings and stuff from the last setup. And so we're gonna go down from this to this and over to this to this. I will tell you that I made a mistake, but it worked out awesome. Is I, for some reason, I don't know how I did it, but I measured from this plate to this plate, the mounting surfaces with those 4 big bolts that mount this axle. And it's actually 8 1/4 inches, but I made my plate 10 1/4. I was like, oh no, what did I do? But I absolutely needed to do that so that there'd be enough space for this lever that actually comes past the plate. So I needed space for that. So now I've got spacers. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's like I planned it, but I'm being honest, I didn't plan it. I also needed space for that banjo bolt for the hydraulic caliper. So yay me. It doesn't always happen, but mistake for the better. And our frame is a good width as well with that. It lets our frame be a little bit wider. I've got this motor plate set up just clamped to the tubes right now, but it works awesome. The only other thing I wanted to tell you about, I made this on there without really knowing, and basically that was a gusset, but I can't fit it because of this cable pull and this rotor. No big deal, I just made it because I could make it. I could definitely use it back here and add the strength to the back, which it probably needs anyway. You may be wondering why I cut these so that they could be bent. I do have a brake press, but I find that if I do this, it just makes it really easy for me to just bend it by hand and make sure that these bend corners are super tight for the measurement of width here. This is a way that you can do it at home too. Like if you need to bend thicker metal, just leave a couple spots that have the metal attached, and you can even just zip cut these lines in it and then make your bend. And it's almost like having it tacked and adjustable, you know? So that is a little trick that I like to use. But overall, super happy with the way that rear end went in there. I think that like we're figured back there. I can put some chains on there and bolt everything down and that'd run. So let's just have a look at these little brackets too. I actually did bend these ones in the brake press without having to cut them. Oh, and somebody on the AutoCAD drawing was telling me about the fillet command, and I finally learned it. So I know how to do fillets in 2D drafting now. Thank you for whoever that was. Now I'm onto the front. So now what I want to do with the front is keep it simple, but I want to keep, like I don't want to have a bar that goes straight across there because it'll be kind of too high. It's a few inches above the frame right now. So I want my bar to be like a drop axle on a hot rod. I want it to drop down to the frame and across. In case I want to put my feet there, I want as much room as possible for, you know, people to put their legs so that we can sit down in the car. I think it'd be really neat if we were sitting low enough to actually look out the window. Anyway, you should sit low. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna brainstorm my front axle setup and get something built there. We are close to being a roller. That's the goal for this video, is that we are rolling chassis underneath the car. And just to be clear, these are not the tires that are gonna be on here. I ordered up some white wall tires that are from a scooter. And I'm gonna see if I can spread them, or I might have to get thinner wheels, but I think they're gonna work out fine. They're gonna be a little stretched looking, but we're gonna use some nice white wall tires instead of this ATV stuff. Okay, let's get after it. All right, check her out. We're kind of tacked, half welded into place, but we are rolling. We are rolling on 4 wheels. This axle turned out really sweet. The shape of it, it looks cool, like nobody's gonna see it, but I kind of wanted to make sure that the chassis was low, so it had to drop like that. So, I mean, you know, drop axle, you get it. This is just a go-kart, right? So this is just DOM tube, 1/4 inch wall. So like 1 inch 240 wall. So there's a little bit of play for the bolt in there. It's just super basic. There's no bushings in there or anything because it's a little go-kart. Like what is it? I could put bushings in, I suppose later if I want to, but let's be honest guys, I'm not gonna drive this thing enough to wear out those kingpins, you know, 1/2 inch bolts. One thing I did do is I added a little bit of caster to the axle. I trimmed away the bottoms and tipped the axle a little bit to add a bit of caster. It's nice on a go-kart even that, you know, it wants to drive straight after you turn a corner. That's all that's doing. And the back turned out wonderful. It's, you know, it's all tacked in now. I welded up a few spots. I still got to weld a few different places, but I want to chain it up and just kind of make sure that it's all good. I'm sure it is, but yeah, I'm so stoked at how fast it's coming together. That CNC plasma, let me tell you, is like such a life changer because so many things can be solved with it. Like 2 little plates like that, it locates itself in the frame. It locates the, you know, where to weld those on. It has the right height built into it. Like if I were to bend a tube even like that, it would take me so long, not even so long, but you have to make a little jig and bend the tube and, you know, figure out all the stuff and fabricate, you know, this and that. But this just like cuts it and then it's ready. So yeah, I haven't been at this too long and we can already put the chain on. Like if you fired up the motor, like it would drive. Next up is gonna be the steering. So I've got these tie rods. I also want the steering to be as low as possible because my feet are gonna come over this. So I'm gonna probably swap these tie rods to the bottom side, and these are just a bolt. They're not tapered or anything, so it's not a big deal. These are from the ATV, so these have like the left and rights. This is also a steering rod from the ATV that my buddy saved. So I'm gonna try and mount this somehow or make a new plate for it, and then, you know, make the rods the right length for the tie rods, put the steering wheel in the right spot. That's where I'm gonna stop today with this video. Is I would like my goal to be steering wheel on, you know, maybe not supported by the dash or anything, but steering wheel on and steerable and rollable. And then I wanna just mock the body up on the frame and I wanna sit in it and hold the steering wheel. That's what I wanna do. All right, steering's on, got the tie rods happening, looking good. Okay, honesty time. Who noticed? Do you know what I'm talking about? I bet most of you don't, because I totally missed it building it. I've built a bunch of go-karts in my time. Things are just going so well and so fast on this thing that I just didn't even think about it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? I want you to put in the comments if you knew before I did, because I welded this all up and it all looks great. But watch, when I turn left, what does the steering shaft do? Yeah. Oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Not a big deal. The steering, like the tie rod ends, the tie rods, they're still fine. But what I do have to do is I have to flip the steering shaft up here so that when I turn to the right, it goes to the right. Because right now, when I turn to the right, the steering wheel goes left, and I think that might be tough to get the hang of if I were driving it. So you drive this thing backwards for a while, then you hop in your truck and go crash it. All right, well, that's what I'm gonna work on next is, I like everything about all this. All I have to do is, that's why we tack things, is it's only tacked on in just 2 spots here, bam, bam, cut those tacks, flip this around, and then I'll design some kind of bracket to hold this on this side. I think it'll give us a nicer steering angle too, because like right now our steering angle's super bus driver, you know, we want a little bit more cruiser, bus driver, cruiser. That's what I'm working on next, just make a bracket, flip that around, and then once we've got that figured out, I want to put the body on and then figure out where the steering wheel is gonna go. All right, steering's fixed. Made that little bracket up. It's nice and strong. Offset for the driver, because we are gonna try and fit 2 people in here if we can. Loving the way it all looks. Gotta test it on the body. So what I'm gonna do before I do that is I'm just gonna make a template for the Grant steering wheel. And then we'll make a template for the steering wheel. And I'll maybe drill that hole out so that it slides up and down on here. Then we'll go sit in the car with the body mocked up around it and position the steering wheel, give it a tack weld. Well, there she is. Look at this cute little car. It's a little bit higher than I originally was thinking about, but I actually don't mind it. Oh, wheelbase is off a little bit. I gotta just slide the body back. It's just sitting on there. I don't mind the wheelbase. I mean the height, because the wheel is like nice and centered in the wheel well that he cut. He cut a totally circular wheel well, so I don't mind that. I don't mind that it's a few inches off the ground, so that, say if I was on some grass or whatever, or bumpy stuff, like you could ride this more places. You could ride this on a golf course. Look at how cool that is. Can't wait till I get bumpers on it. Like that'll be the next thing. We're just talking major wheel. I think the wheel placement of the back is pretty good. Everything seems to be fitting pretty nice inside here. Have a look at how much room we have. I think my feet will go past that axle. That's my thoughts anyway. One leg on one side of the column there. And then back here, you know, if this is our back seat coming down on an angle here, got plenty of room to hide that behind maybe some kind of firewall. At this height, I mean, I could go lower. We could take the gas tank off, we could take the air cleaner off, and we could go lower. But the beautiful thing about the height that it is right now is that everything fits. Like, I think it looks awesome at this height, actually. You know, obviously everything's cooler if it's got air ride. But I mean, it's just so darn cute. Can't wait till I get the white wall tires. Those tires are gonna get thinner. The ones that I bought are like wide white wall scooter tires. So they're only 4 inches wide, and I think that's at least a 6-inch rim. So they're gonna spread out a little bit. I think it's gonna look kind of cool. The back ones are super wide. But I mean, the trunk closes. I like that. We've got clearance to the motor from the trunk gutter. And I'm definitely obviously gonna have to do a pipe out for the exhaust. Like, you can't just have it filling up the inside of here. We'll have to do an exhaust system on it. But I love that it all fits super tight and it fits under the trunk. Such a cute little car. I'm gonna hop in here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see anything when I am in here, but yeah. Get my foot out there. I can fully extend my legs, it seems like. You know, if I put some kind of a shelf up there for my feet, have my pedals. My feet are straight out though, absolutely straight out. I got tons of room because nothing needs to be in front of there. I am actually I'm looking above the window, but I could look underneath the window. I'm looking like here right now, kind of like that. But if I tilt my head down, steering works. Let me show you the steering. Works nice. Anyway, that's that. Well, thanks for watching Make It Custom, everybody. This has been a really fun one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I love go-kart stuff. How can you not? Shit's so fun. Thanks a lot for watching Make It Custom, everybody. Don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. We'll catch you on the next one.